Okay, well, I want to welcome everyone for coming to our TAP webinar today. We're going to get a lot of great information about a grant that's upcoming for students and actually adults as well. Our guest speaker for today is Miss Mooney, and she's going to tell us a little bit about herself and then kick off our webinar. And just so everyone knows, we are going to record this, so that way if students miss this presentation, we will get it posted on our website as well. So as people are still joining, I'll go ahead and add them. And at the end of the presentation, we'll have some time for a few questions. And then there is also a task for seniors to complete that's about a kind of a yearbook survey. So I'm gonna right away just hand it over to Miss Mooney. And thank you so much for joining us and helping us out today.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you all so much for taking time today to learn a little bit about some career pathways and funding opportunities through the Workforce Center. My name is Sammy Mooney, and I'm a job coach at the Pikes Peak Workforce Center. If you've never heard of the Workforce Center, I'd say number one thing, if you'll take away anything from today, know that there's an agency here in Colorado Springs that our entire goal is to get folks employed in what we call gainful employment. So where you actually want to be employed. And so what I do at the Workforce Center is I mostly work with job seekers. We have an internship program that I place folks into. And I also work with businesses in the region to understand what their hiring needs are and how we can get more folks looking for jobs ready and prepped for the jobs that they have open and need to fill. But the Workforce Center does everything from workshops to one-on-one job coaching. We have funding opportunities for training, internships, all across the board. We do job fairs. And so really anything career-wise that you might ever be needing, we are here to help. And so this presentation today is really the start of our relationship with your school. We have some new funding that's come from the state that we really want to make sure to get the word out about because it's really awesome opportunities. But our team will be at your school supporting folks getting eligible for the program, figuring out what it is that you want to do. And so you'll be seeing us more around campus and have more access to us going forward. And so when we were prepping this PowerPoint, I dug up this photo from when I was in high school. As we were thinking about making a presentation to current juniors and seniors, we really worked to try to, think about how you were feeling at that time. You can see this picture. I think I was 17 this year. I can't remember if I'm 16 or 17, but one of those years I had red hair, so I know it's not that year. But even in this picture alone of my good friends from that year, in this picture of just 5 or 6 folks, only 2 of us in that picture went straight to a 4-year college. My other friends in that picture, one person went into the Marines and still is active duty. One of them is a medical assistant who's wanting to continue to become a nurse. One's actively a nurse. One of my friends here, she's in customer service, working on some other credentials. And so even in this little snapshot of, my group of friends at that time, we've all gone very different pathways. And so what I'm really here to talk to you about is that I know you're stressed. I know that it's a crazy time just where you're at right now, junior, senior year. And I remember, talking with my friends at that age. And the big questions that I remember from, my circle was number one, what if I don't want to go to college? I remember having a lot of friends, especially senior year, who are like, I really don't think this is for me right after high school. And it felt like a lot of times there wasn't really any other option. And, also, of course, we're all thinking, how are we going to support ourselves after high school? I know, like, every time I'd get into an argument with my parents, they'd be like, well, how are you going to, keep a job? You think you want to move out of here, but, how are you even going to make that happen? And that was a lot of stress because you hear about rising housing costs and rent and bills and stuff like that. And it can get really stressful to figure out, what's next. And then lastly is, where do you even start? I know for me, I had one parent who was a teaching assistant, and my dad owns a really small business. And so for me, I didn't even know that my job existed in the community that I have now when I was in high school. And so how do you even start thinking about what's the right choice, where you can go next? And so I'm here today to talk to you guys a little bit, addressing some of these questions, where you can start, and also some other options that you maybe didn't realize are out there, outside of going straight to a four-year degree. And so you'll be hearing me say the phrase career pathway a lot. So I wanted to take a second to define it. So when I say a career pathway, it's about stopping to think about your career as this job that you're going to pick and you're going to stay in for 30 years. That's not how our economy is anymore. I know, I've been out of college for, a handful of years, and I've already had, 2 different jobs. And so thinking about, what is the actual different steps? What's the journey to get to it you want to? Basically, outside of, the boomer generation, the average millennial and Gen Z working person is going to have 3 to 4 major careers within their lives, which might sound a little stressful, but that's to ease it off, that you're not picking what you're going to do the rest of your life. And what we'll be talking about today is a great way to allow that flexibility. And with career pathways, you can also start somewhere and pivot accordingly to your interests, to your growth areas. That's the same thing with if you have an industry in mind. So say if you want to work in medicine, but 8 years going to medical school sounds a little daunting when you're 17, 18 years old. There's steps that you can take before that to make sure it's really what you want to do and how you want to grow. So I know lots of folks who have started out as a phlebotomist, so drawing people's blood, to becoming a medical assistant, to becoming a nurse, to becoming, if they want to be a PA or go into admin. And so there's lots of steps that you can take, and certificates are a huge way that you can do that. And so I'm talking about pathways, we're thinking about what's the end goal, or, what are these like job titles you have in mind already? So I pulled this data just Monday morning. And so this is the freshest data that we have of the top 10 jobs that are open in Colorado Springs. And so you can see on this list, not all of these jobs are going to require a bachelor's degree right out the gate. And a lot of these jobs you could actually start in right out of high school, or even, summer between junior, senior year. And when you're looking at these jobs and what it might take to be good at these roles, you can be working or getting certificates to learn these skills early on, before you feel like you're, signing on and investing in, that 30-year career that you want. And so some just pull out here, of course, RNs, medical is huge here in Colorado Springs, especially with COVID. You've probably heard about truck driving, but also software developers. That's something that you can get through credentials. Becoming a manager is something that you can really set yourself apart by showing that you've done some management coursework or experience. Same with maintenance and repair workers. There's some certificates that you can get along the way, but that's also a job you could start the day after you graduate from high school. And these are jobs that require degrees and not, when I'm looking at these top 10. So you can see the number of opportunities we have in town. And I show you this list and I phrase it this way, not to say, people shouldn't go to college right after high school. But what I urge you to do is think about what that end goal is and figure out, well, do I need a bachelor's degree right now? Should I just start working to get to that pathway? And when you have more of a pathway mindset, when you're thinking about your career, you're not going to be in that situation like so many folks in my generation are, where they, got a degree or thought something was going to prep them for the right career. And they're in jobs that don't necessarily require degrees, where they could have been working sooner. And so thinking about your end goal, using that to create a pathway of how you can get there over time. And so all this sounds great, right? You see, okay, there's jobs out in the town. You're telling me that there's other options if I'm, maybe not ready to go to four-year college right off the bat. And so, what is this other option that exists? And so I'm here today to really talk to you about what we call short-term career pathway options. And so that's a really jargony title to tell you that this is a way that you can get certificates and training in less than a year to be able to start out in skilled trades. And so some of these roles would be like a CNA. So that's folks that, maybe work in hospice care or with the elderly, or folks that have mental illnesses or physical disabilities. Skilled trades, you probably already have things come to mind like construction or HVAC, working on air conditioning or plumbing. But these positions aren't just these, physically intensive positions that come to mind. You also have positions that do great in business operations. So things like bookkeeping or, account, like basic accounting, administrative skills. There's lots of softwares that people need people trained on, where they don't want to wait for folks to have to wait to get a degree necessarily. They're giving that training now, and the jobs are out there now to get started. And so this is a really great option. And some of the pros of this, and I really tried to think about what I was frustrated about when I was 17, 18 years old. I know that when I was sitting in classrooms, I was totally the student saying, okay, when am I going to use this in real life? Like, how much longer do I have to sit in a classroom and learn about stuff that I know I'm not going to be doing a career in this? And so a pro to getting short-term certifications is that you're studying exactly what you're doing in the job. If you want to be a phlebotomist and draw people's blood, your training to be a phlebotomist is shockingly learning how to draw people's blood. And so you're learning those real life skills, very tangible. It's a very different type of education. If you're thinking that a typical, bachelor's degree program, isn't right for you, having this hands-on training is a different type of learning that you can do. Also, I know that I was so stressed about student loan debt. And I knew that was my number one thing in choosing a college and choosing a pathway, is that I knew I did not want to take on tens of thousands of dollars of debt. I've heard the horror stories. I watched my parents deal with student loan debt for decades. And so short-term certifications is also an awesome opportunity to do something lower cost. Also, these programs take 12 months or less. So you're not, having to invest in something you're hoping is going to be there several years down the line. Jobs are there now, you can do training now. And then my favorite part, and I think the biggest draw to credentials, is that you can be flexible as you grow and change. If you go and you spend 3 months in a phlebotomy program and you get into phlebotomy and that first year is great, but then it's not for you anymore, you'll only use 2 months of your time getting that training. And maybe you want to pivot into an ultrasound tech and you get to use some of that training already relevant, or you're already working in a hospital and the hospital has stepping stones for you to get there. And so I know I was most stressed out about picking the job I was going to have for 30 years when I was in high school. And with credentials, you're not losing anything by pivoting, by changing. You're getting real life training for the jobs that exist right there in front of you. And most importantly, and probably the biggest thing on your mind is, how am I going to be independent when I'm out of high school? And it can be really scary, if it's staying with your parents, if it's moving out with your friends, if you're, going to a college and like living on campus. Like, I know I already had my apartment dreams, like all pinned on. We used to have Pinterest when I was in high school, pinned on my Pinterest board. What are you excited about when you think about your independence? And so getting a credential can be a great opportunity for you to move into some higher wage, more skilled jobs where you can be more independent. We all live in Colorado Springs. We all hear about, how much rent costs, how much, housing costs, and it can be really crazy stressful to think about, okay, well, how am I even going to start earning that much money? And this is an opportunity to start earning above minimum wage and also set yourself up on a pathway where you can keep increasing that wage as well as you get more skilled. And so I encourage you right now, maybe think in your head, where do you want to be after high school? What does your life look like? Does it look like hanging out with friends downtown? Does it look like, going out to the mountains and camping for a full weekend or a week? Think about, what your lifestyle could look like, and your career can match that as well. If you're someone who wants to be going on 4-day trips, very often, maybe nursing is a great field because you can stack long shifts early in a week. stability and getting your own place with friends is most important. You might be thinking about, how am I really going to increase my wage and have like consistent hours and benefits there. I know for me, when I got out of high school, my parents were like, all right, we're taking you off the health insurance, we're taking you off the car insurance, like this is all on you now. And I freaked out, like trying to figure out how I could be independent. And so this gives you another option outside of the four-year degree to start working. And this goes too, if you know that your career field needs a four-year degree, this might be your opportunity to earn money as you're going to school. My husband, actually, he is what's called a behavior technician, and his role just needed a credential. And at the same time that he's doing this job full time, he's working on his bachelor's degree in the evenings. And so it can be just an option, earning that money sooner, working full time sooner, and getting to those goals that you have. And so to talk to you a little bit about our grant that's coming in, of course, your age group has been crazy affected by COVID. I think when I think of everyone impacted by COVID, I think a lot about those that were teenagers, when things started. And we know that, getting back into school and figuring out what's next and also when you're at that age and a pandemic happens, it's scary to think about your career and what's the future when the world was flipped upside down so recently. But one of the, I don't want to say a pro to it, but one thing that's come out since COVID is a lot of funding from the state and federal government. And so this funding that I'm talking to you about today is our most, what we call low barrier funding that we've ever had at the Workforce Center. And so usually in order to get training and internships and things like that paid for by us, you have to be able to identify a high barrier to it, where we have to have you go through like the eligibility process, and not everyone is eligible for it, just like scholarships, where this program, nearly everyone is eligible for this funding. And the only and the piece that they're really trying to get folks set up with is doing those short-term certifications, using this opportunity for this funding to get into the fields that you want, to start getting to work. The Big Seed Initiative is getting folks the resources and the training that they need to immediately get into these jobs that they want. Some other perks to doing a funding through us is that you do get a career counselor. So that's something that I do. A part of my job is I'm there working with folks when they're going through those training programs or through an internship. So that way we're there to, help encourage you, but also we're there as a, expert in the field, let okay, so now that we're only a month away from you finishing this training, let's start job searching. Let's find companies that are hiring for what you want. We can help you network. We can help you, practice interviews, get your resume ready, and be there for that entire process. Once you start the relationship with us and you do a training, we're there all the way up until you're in a permanent job, which when you're thinking about your career can feel very lonely and isolating sometimes. When you're starting to get, in high school now, you have counselors and you have teachers and you have, all of your friends around you to help encourage you. When you get closer to leaving high school, it's scary to think about, I'm not going to have, 7 teachers that see me every day to make sure I'm doing okay. And so this is an opportunity to really continue that support with folks who know what we're doing, right? All we do is think about employment. And I pulled some data the other morning as well about some job openings that exist right now in Colorado Springs. And so some of those trainings, like the certified nursing assistant, right? That's not too long of a program. And there's over 1,600 positions open right now, ready to pay you, ready to bring you in. Same with auto service technicians, working on cars. This is a huge shortage in our area. More than 1,000 jobs open in this field. That is also not a long credential to learn. And also secretarial and administrative work as well, almost 1,500 jobs. And so right there, you have, I'm nearly, like doing quick math, like nearly 5,000 positions open. And all of those are certificate programs that are short-term, that are studying exactly what you're going to be doing. And they're programs that we can fund for you. And you get a career counselor to support you through that process. Man, I love the picture on this slide because that's exactly how I imagine, when you get that weight off your shoulders and freaking out about your future and, having panic attacks, trying to figure out what's next, that our program can really be the key to whatever independence looks like for you. And the funding is available. We're here. We have the resources to really support you in this. And so, we're getting close to wrapping up here, and we'll take some questions in a moment. But, if this sounds really exciting for you, if this sounds even remotely like an option, or some of this speaks to pathways that you might want to take, or that you could use some career support, some ways that you can get started. Like I said, this is a continued relationship that we'll be having with your school. And so be on the lookout. We'll be starting in January. We'll be, maybe having rooms. We will, maybe be in some more classrooms or clubs and getting connected with more of you to figure out what's next. I want to say too that you don't need to know exactly what you want to do to get started. Probably about 20% of my role is sitting down with folks who know that they need employment and figuring out how do you even choose what certificate program. We're here to help you narrow down the options to figure out where to even go. We can pull that data to make sure the certificate that you're doing is going to translate to a high need job when you're out of the program. And so Ms. Martinez mentioned she's going to be sending out a form. So filling it in the form, we'll be collecting some information so we can follow up. And then also, if you're just trying to figure out, what's next, how do you even start thinking about your career, just start Googling stuff and start, asking questions. I know for me, I really didn't have, like I said, my mom was a teaching assistant. My dad owned a small business. And so to me, I wasn't aware, what it was like to be a lawyer. I wasn't aware of like the entire nonprofit field or government work or finance or, so many different fields when you don't necessarily have people immediately in your life that have done those jobs before, just asking questions and when you're out and about in the community and you're, Googling things or even watching TV shows too, visualize yourself in those positions and start thinking about what are those things that you want in a job. Do you want something that's fast paced? Do you want something that's specialized? Do you want to be the expert in the room, or do you want to be leading a group of folks to all become better? All of these questions help narrow down what it is you want. And the more questions that you're asking, when you're interacting with people in the community or family and friends, holidays are coming up. I'm sure you're going to have lots of, family or friends around that have different careers than your parents do. And so asking those questions, I'm sure a lot of your teachers and advisors have had different positions too, other than education, that they can speak to, how did they make those transitions? Asking those questions early on is going to help you figure out what to do and just start the conversation and let us help you figure out what's next. I know you all take U Science as well. I actually lead the rollout of U Science for the community with the Workforce Center. And I love U Science too, just for exploring different careers. Even now, sometimes I scroll through my thing, I'm like, I wonder what it would be like to be a financial advisor. And I can see, pieces of it that might align or might not. And so all these steps can help you. We'll be around, so look out for us. And just let your, counselors or advisors or teachers know if this is definitely a resource that you want to be connected with. And also talk to your parents and people at home too. And so we'll open up for a couple of questions.
Yeah, we have some time for some questions. We'll kind of monitor that. Just so seniors know, please know that on the Counseling Center webpage, the main webpage, we did post a Google form interest link on there. So if this is something you're interested in, we are partnering with the Pikes Peak Workforce in January. We want to have some informational meetings, like the follow-up. They don't want to just present this and then you're on your own. We really talked a lot about what's the next steps to support students through the process. So that's our goal. So there is an interest form. If anyone has questions or classes, we can take a couple too. By the way, seniors, in the email that I sent to you, it also has the Google form, interest form in there. There is another survey for the yearbook staff they would like seniors to take. So you have that in your survey. But if juniors are interested, you didn't necessarily get an email. However, you can go to the Counseling Center main webpage, and if you scroll to the bottom, you'll see the Google interest form link. So yeah, so we're open for a few questions. If classrooms have questions, we can certainly do that. We'll give people a few like a couple of maybe 30 seconds to a minute to get that typed. And if we don't have any, that's totally fine too. We do plan to do a follow-up as well. So we'll give people just a few minutes to kind of see if we have any questions. Well, I don't see any coming in at this moment, but there is an opportunity for you to kind of get your information out there for us. We thank you so much for taking the time, and thank you, Ms. Mooney. You are a wealth of information, and that was super helpful, I think, for a lot of students to hear. So thank you so much. And well, we'll go ahead and wait, let's see. He's there. Thank you all. We appreciate it. And we'll be in touch with students soon. Okay. And have a wonderful day.
Fabulous. Well, thank you all and have a good rest of your week.
All right. Thank you so much.